Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about transforming account-based marketing and sales with machine learning. Before we jump into the content, let's go through a few housekeeping items. So you'll see on your screens on the left there is a chat box. So at any point throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, we encourage you to submit them there. We are going to hold on questions until the very end and have a dedicated Q&A section then. But feel free to, once you think of a question, feel free to jot it down in there and send it over to us. Also, we are recording today's webinar, and the recording will be available probably in the next day or so. If you're registered for the webinar, you'll get an email once that's gone live and is ready for viewing. And we'll get it up in the Metadata blog and get it out to folks on Twitter and all that as well after the webinar. Speaking of Twitter, if anybody is active on Twitter, we highly encourage you to get involved with the Metadata and Outbound Work Twitter accounts and engage us in conversations. We've also got our speakers here. This information will be on the Q&A slide as well if you want to jot it down. And we're going to be using the hashtag B2BABM after the webinar to continue the conversation. But again, for now, if you have questions during the live webinar, please ask them in that chat box on the left. So today we're going to have two presenters. The first is Gil Alush, the founder and CEO of Metadata. After that, we'll have a presentation from Ben Sardella, who is the co-founder of Outbound Works. So without further ado, I will kick things over to Gil.
All right. Thank you very much, Nate, and welcome. So you're very familiar probably with account-based marketing as it's kind of the new paradigm shift in which in B2B marketing, unlike B2C marketing, you can't really market to everyone. There's a very particular universe of companies that need your product and can afford your product. And there are very particular people within those companies that need to see your message. And so account-based marketing is simply the shift that says, let's narrow down the universe that need and can afford our product, and let's only market to them. Let's not spend a minute of our time or $1 of our marketing budget into unqualified prospects. Because first of all, by narrowing down your total addressable market and essentially only marketing to that particular universe, you can spend a lot more money and time on the right prospects, and also your sales counterpart is going to spend so much more time developing qualified accounts versus sifting through unqualified leads. So the value is clear, and account-based marketing is the way to go with B2B marketing. It's one of the tactics that you should apply to your demand generation. However, if you were to try to execute an account-based marketing, account-based targeting tactic today, it would be challenging. It would be challenging because it gets increasingly difficult to manage your marketing stack. You have many, dozens of different marketing solutions today that you have to use. It varies from your CRM, your marketing automation, to send your email, your CRM to have a nice record of all of your accounts and opportunities, from your different data sources that you may be purchasing data from, the data sources that you're using to enrich your existing leads or incoming leads, your landing page optimization like the Optimizely, or retargeting like the Ad Roll or Perfect Audience, your UTM tag, the generator, maybe the different advertising channels and different advertising accounts. So really you find yourself sometimes spending vast majority of your time making sure those kind of operations are happening versus running the actual marketing campaigns and coming up with new programs. And so the idea would be to not have any kind of time wasted on mundane technical operations, and spend more time running and coming up with new campaigns and new programs. And so that is the problem that we're trying to solve at Metadata, and that is the way we recommend modern marketing managers to spend their time, coming up with new campaigns, and let the AI, let the machine learning, or let the computer in general automate much of that day-to-day mundane tasks. So we start with audience. Everything starts from the audience. At the end of the day, you want to understand what worked in the past, analyze your historical sales data together with third-party data. So you want to pair together your first-party data, the data that you're getting about your customers, about your deals, about the stakeholders that you need to quote-unquote touch in order to close a deal. And you want to enrich that data with as much information as you can get from those third-party vendors. And you have many, many of those third-party vendors available today to help you understand what worked in the past. It could be your inside view or Zoom info that help with kind of thermographic data. It could be your PIPL, lead ferret that help you with demographic data. It could be your data knife for front-end technology install base. It could be AG-Data for back-end technology install base. It could be Bombora for buyer intent data, or re-intent for buyer intent data. There are dozens of data sources out there, and you should leverage them as appropriate for your particular business, because every business has different attributes that make or break an ideal customer profile. For some companies, knowing that the company is using Marketo might be the best or most interesting signal, and for another company it might be the industry, another company could be the age and the gender and the education of that particular person that you're selling to. So you have to figure it out for yourself, but definitely making sure that the audience you're targeting is precisely the one you should go after is the first order of business. Because then the only thing that you have to do, or the only thing left for you, is the engagement. If you already have a 100% qualified and guaranteed target audience to go after, and we recommend that you actually take your sales counterpart and ask them to verify that indeed those are the accounts and those are the people who need those accounts that you should get engaged, you should engage with in order to close a deal, then now the only thing you have left is to actually get those people to come in as an inbound lead or outbound them as a prospect. And so that's what we recommend to do here at Metadata is once you figure out those accounts, you want to break and slice and dice them into multiple segments, either by using buyer intent, technology install base, firmographic or demographic. Break it down into different segments because based on different segments, you may want to submit or send them a different kind of collateral, different kind of offer that might resonate with them better. For example, if you're targeting list of accounts or currently using a particular technology and are in the market for your kind of solution, so you may want to give them a comparison chart between you and that particular technology. Maybe you want to give them some kind of a white paper that says why use your particular solution versus others. So you may want to deliver different content to different people and based on different stages. So a company that is currently in the market and maybe already engaged with you might benefit from a bottom or middle of the funnel collateral like a comparison chart or case studies and other things that might be more down the funnel. And a new prospect that has never heard about you before but is qualified and is within the right account might benefit more from a top of the funnel collateral like a white paper or an ebook or a webinar like the one we're doing right now. So what happens once you qualified and now you have your total addressable market within your grasp, and you know exactly who you want to go after, you have a list of companies that you want to go after, you have a list of people within those companies that you know you want to go after them, now what? At this point, we recommend that you go about in two ways. One is the sales development approach, and vis-a-vis, you also want to go within the marketing approach. You want to hit those people with as many possible touches in parallel because once you send them an email and they open it, now you're top of mind. It makes more sense now to also show them an ad, and vice versa. Once you show them an ad and you know that Bank of America has seen your ad 700 times this week and they clicked on it 3 times and they converted 1 time, now is the best time to start outbounding them and other people within that account to see if you can start building up a report and then create an opportunity in the pipeline. And so you always want to have those two kind of collateral and being in parallel. Now some of the analytics you need to have around it needs to be very granular to give you a very good idea of exactly who you're targeting. When you run different kind of targeted advertisements against your target accounts, because you have so many different pieces of collateral, because you have so many different kinds of creatives, because there are different channels you can target them on, and because there are different campaign types and audiences segments that you have generated in the previous step, you may be overwhelmed. How exactly am I going to actually go after this target audience, given all the marketing mix that I have in place? And the answer is multivariate experimentation. You may be familiar with A/B testing from your marketing automation. You're about to send an email campaign to 100,000 people. You want to make sure as many people open that email and click on that call to action. And so you may be A/B testing the subject line. One subject might be, make sure to sign up for this webinar, and the second one would be, 7 spots left, register now for this webinar. One of them might be getting more responses, and you want to A/B test between those subjects. But what about the other variables that you may have within that email blast? What about the audience? Do you really think that the same email applies to all 100,000 people? Is the only thing you're personalizing is the first name in that email? What about the channel? Do you want to send the same email on mobile and on a desktop? Do you want to send the same call to action to both of them? Maybe one of them is irrelevant to that particular call to action. And so with account-based targeting, in particular with metadata, since the AI operator does not know exactly what type of collateral works best with what audience, on what channel, what campaign type, so on and so forth, the tactic it uses in order to run those campaigns the most effective way is use multivariate experimentation. And this is basically the sense of the measure of running multivariants at the same time. So the system, metadata, will essentially use all of your collateral, all of the different white papers, ebooks, webinar recordings, case studies, etc., all the collaterals you may have on your resources page, together with all the creatives you have for all of this collateral, on all the channels that you have enabled, like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, programmatic, retargeting, etc., and try it with all the different segments that you have. And to essentially ramp up all of those experiments on your behalf, actually execute those campaigns for you, and start looking at what actual yield do you get from each and every one of those experiments, meaning not only the impressions and clicks that you get from those ads, but what kinds of leads are you getting? For every lead that you get through each and every one of those experiments, what type of lead is it? Does it fit your ideal customer profile? Does the account that lead come from matches one of your target accounts? Does the marketing automation score, is that marketing automation score? Is it behaving well? Is it interacting or she's interacting well with your other collateral? And finally, pipeline impact. Is it creating or impacting an existing pipeline? If all of the above are normalized and pushed back into the experiment level, you'll be able to know, is this experiment a very high ROI experiment? Is it giving me all the leads I want for a good price from within the target account I'm going after? If that's the case, you want to move most of your budget towards those experiments, and you want to generate new experiments that are based on that particular campaign because it's been performing well for you. And if it's not, if it's either neutral or negative, you're not able to pace the campaign, or it's generating impressions but not clicks, or clicks but no conversions, or conversions but not the right one, or it's too expensive, or any of the other negative attributes, then you eliminate experiments and you try a different one. So to get kind of a bird's view into exactly what is the whole process of using AI when you do account-based marketing and sales, we'll go through kind of the blueprint. And this is, if you forget everything and you kind of concentrate on this blueprint and use this blueprint to set up your experimentation process, this will serve you, in those tactics. And so you always want to start with what's worked in the past. So this particular experiment, in this particular process, you dive into your Salesforce data, you pull in all the accounts, all the contacts, and all the opportunities, because you want to understand what are the types of accounts and the types of people associated with those accounts convert the best opportunities historically. Which types of companies and types of personas within those companies associate with the best opportunities that we had so far. Then you want to enrich those accounts and contacts, because maybe in your Salesforce you don't really have all the information and you haven't gathered all the possible attributes about those companies and about those contacts. Once you have a very wealthy data set of all the opportunities, all the contacts, all the accounts, all the leads, and all the enriched data for them, this is where you want to start doing some analysis. And analysis can be a machine learning classification model, like we use here, or it can be a multiple modifications of statistical functions, like it could be k-means clustering, it could be random forest, regression, there are many ways for you to analyze your data in a statistical tool or run a statistical function or even in Excel to start understanding who is your ideal customer profile. You can use a solution like Metadata, or you can just do it on your homegrown tools. Once you figure out your ICP, your ideal customer profile, now you know at least what worked in the past. So you solved 1/3 of the puzzle. The next is to understand, based on your goals, where are you taking these insights. If you're doing sales acceleration, meaning you're trying to push existing opportunities down the funnel, either to a closed loss or ideally to a closed one, this tactic will involve using the ICP for the purpose of getting more people within those accounts and running more programs in order to get those people to wake up, quote unquote, and get back to the opportunity, to the deal room, and see if this deal is going anywhere. It's going towards a closed loss or a closed one. So for the purpose of sales acceleration, you would use the ICP and generate more contacts within those accounts and start running more relevant programs against them. If your goal is to generate new top of the funnel leads, then you want to go back to take that insight, go back to your data sources and say, how many more, if my ICP or if ICP number one is companies belonging to these industries and between those company sizes and this revenue from these locations, so on and so forth, then you want to go back to those data sources and say, how many more companies fit this particular criteria? And can you get me more of them? And then once you get more of those companies, then you can go forward to the next step and start running ads against those accounts. You can run many kinds of campaigns with metadata or in general on your own. You can run the air cover when you have salespeople going after particular people, and Ben will talk about it later. You can run competitive campaigns going after companies that are within your ideal customer profile and are currently using competitive technologies. You can go after buyer intent, companies that are currently in the market and they're on Forrester and Gartner and other websites looking for your particular solution because they're kind of comparing vendors or looking at the best practices. All of those signals, whether they are in the category of firmographic signals, demographic signals, buyer intent signals, or technology install-based signals, those can help you determine exactly the audiences and different ways you want to target your list of target accounts. And then finally, once you have the insight and you applied it with data, you can basically generate your entire total addressable market and have that in your in your company drive in order for everyone to see exactly who you're going after. It shouldn't be a surprise when you get an inbound lead. It shouldn't be a surprise who that lead is. You should be very well aware of the companies and the people that you're targeting. And so when you get that person, it's 100% a success because you already qualified them, you already verified that these are indeed the people that you're trying to convert. And then the final step of the process is engaging. So if you already know what worked in the past and you're using that to essentially define your total addressable market, and at this point of time, the only thing you have left is to engage with them, here you want to make sure that you're using any possible channel, using ads as well as email, and make sure that you're using any possible variation, every collateral that you have, with any creative for that collateral, with any audience or with one of the segments that you've generated, within any of the channels and any of the campaign types, and then you want to circulate through those experiments in order for the system to understand, based on metrics, which experiment is working the best. And of course, the 20/80 rule here applies, applies because 20% of your experiments are going to, attribute to about 80% of your pipeline. And then finally, once you have results coming in from the campaign, someone answered your email, someone clicked on your ad and converted, and now you have a new lead. Someone attended one of your webinars or read one of your white papers. You can see those leads come through, and every lead that comes through gets automatically enriched, or should get automatically enriched, and then you should start comparing that lead to your goal. Again, as I mentioned before, there are 4 attributes that Meta is using, but you can be using more attributes. You may be just giving those leads to your sales counterpart and tell him to say yay or nay. Is it a good lead or a bad lead? And based on that, keep an experiment or kill it. Or it can be a little bit more elaborative. You can say, for every lead, I want to see if it matches the ICPs. I want to see if it belongs to the named account. I want to see if it's getting a high marketing automation score. And I want to see exactly what kind of impact it makes on my pipeline. And based on those metrics, I'm going to decide whether this experiment was good or bad. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to hand it over to Ben, who is going to talk about AI and machine learning in the spectrum of sales development.
Thanks, Gil. That was great. And so Outbound Works and Metadata work cohesively to target prospects on behalf of our customers through both programmatic and outbound activities to dramatically increase brand awareness and inevitably, of course, pipeline. But as you can see with this slide, it can be a pretty challenging process. And so in order for marketing and sales to deliver success together, both teams need to work cohesively in a very complex environment. And this requires an agreement of both mutual goals, as well as transparency on what programs are going on at any given time, as well as a definition of success at each point in this process. I'm going to hone in on 3 core areas to make your programs successful. And with personalization, relevancy, and timing, these are core to a strong sales and marketing engagement strategy. So while any one of these could improve the results of a campaign, when you have all 3 orchestrated together, not only will your results improve significantly, but your prospects will actually be delighted to engage with you because you're going to stand out amongst a crowd of vendors that are all trying to buy for their attention. So let's focus on personalization and go in a little bit more depth on this one. There's no doubt that personalization will increase conversion rates. The challenges, though, come when we try to do personalization at scale. And at its core, we like to view a personalized message as something only that I could write to a specific person, meaning if I sent that person's colleague the same exact email, it wouldn't resonate in the same way. So it's not just about inserting a data point into a message, it's about leveraging the conclusion drawn from the data points. So at Outbound Works, we've got an engine that empowers us to weigh the most valuable connections between the contacts at our customers that we're supporting and the receiver, their prospect, to automatically reference those connections as you engage at scale. So you don't need a ton of sophistication to incorporate personalization as part of your process. Really, just to begin, you're going to want to deeply understand your ideal customer profile, your ICP, and of course your key personas. But not just at the firmographic or the technographic level. We want to go much deeper than that. So we put together a couple of questions here to ask ourselves as we're going through this process. Things like, at what point does your ICP experience the sort of pain that your product or service can alleviate? And is it due to growth of a certain rate, for example? So those types of things you want to really start thinking about. Or do you know how your key persona is measured for failure or success in their role? Because those are obviously important things that we can talk to directly with them. Understanding this type of info can be really key to getting an emotional response from a prospect from one of your campaigns. So leveraging that knowledge alongside things like recent social posts or blog posts or writings or changes in their role or major changes within their company or even industry-wide changes can really significantly impact the conversion rates in a positive way. And remember, the key is leveraging any connection to your value proposition. So it's not good enough to reference that we both know Gil, for example, but knowing the benefits Metadata and Outbound Works have delivered to each other can leverage that connection with Gil into a conversation that turns into your next qualified opportunity. So now we're going to talk about relevance a little bit. You might have the perfect marketing and sales engine built, but if your pitch isn't relevant to me in my role and aligned with my goals, then I'm going to miss the value that you can deliver. I've got a good example of this. So recently we announced our seed funding here at Outbound Works, and within, I want to say, an hour or two, I probably had 36 direct messages in LinkedIn from recruiters, which is normal. If we announce funding, I get that. But every single one of them, actually 100% of them, were asking me if I was interested in talking to them about hiring engineers. And so while their timing was correct and they did a little bit of personalization in knowing we had just received funding and in trying to engage with me directly, the actual core part of their message, me wanting to hire engineers, was not relevant to me. And so those emails were deleted pretty quickly as a result. So let's dig into this a little bit further, though. So how well do you know your sales, how well do your sales and marketing resources really understand your buyers? And have you only trained them from the perspective of being a seller? So we really want to get into the shoes of the folks that we're trying to engage with. And this is really a common problem. So understanding your buyers and their journey to make a decision on a product or service like yours is key to delivering relevant content on relevant channels, which is also very important. So here are some questions to consider as you drive towards a more relevant approach to your messaging. Ask yourself, what are the common goals and pains your prospects have in their role at certain stages? What are the nuances between your personas? For instance, a C-level exec may care far more about company-wide initiatives as they report up to the board. So improving EBITDA, for example, might be extremely relevant to a CEO, but not to a director of sales or an end user of the platform where features and function might be more relevant to their day-to-day happiness. So sending the perfectly relevant message isn't enough. You also have to engage on a relevant channel as well. So how do your personas like to engage? So some just want to deal with self-service. They actually don't want to engage at all. So your systems need to be prepared to handle self-service engagement. Others prefer the phone or email or text in some cases. Some still prefer carrier pigeon. I don't know any, but I'm guessing that exists. And then again on social channels. But more specifically, which social channels are they actually active on? So just tweeting something out might not get the attention, whereas someone might be extremely active on a Quora or a LinkedIn, for example. Also understand what writing style your buyers prefer to engage with. So it could be story form, it could be short but value driven, or 140 characters. So really understand what's resonated, what's converted in the past so you can replicate that success against those specific types of personas. So now once you've done all this research, understand what to say and where to say it, ensure you have the tools and the skills to engage with them in that way. Now lastly, there's timing. And we used to think about timing as something that happened by chance or by luck, but now we have the data to leverage our knowledge of when to be the most effective at what we do. So effective timing strategy requires answers to questions like where do your prospects go to get advice? What social channels do they post on, or are they part of groups like MSP, for example, or do they go on certain channels and ask, hey, does anyone know a service that does X, Y, Z? Those things allow you the ability to really drive immediate engagement. So know where your folks are playing at, for example. Low-hanging fruit on the data side is tracking things like what time of year your buyers buy and not buy. So does seasonality matter? For example, if you're selling to e-commerce companies, trying to engage with them in the fourth quarter is extremely difficult, and they're not going to change most of their systems because that's their big order time of year. So you're going to want to be mindful of seasonality. If you're tracking technographics, you may be able to track when someone's current subscription might be up. Or if you understand the cycles of your buyers, you know when their budgets may be up, and they may be in a position where they have to use them or lose them. So leveraging that can be really helpful for you. Also tracking when your prospects reply to emails or pick up the phone the most. So things like what hours, what days, what weeks, what months can be really critical to where you spend your time and effort. So when you have a good read on this, you want to maximize your engagement around all this timing. For example, don't do cold calling to the East Coast after 4 p.m. Pacific time. Sounds crazy, but folks still do this. At OutboundWorks, we track whenever the emails open across our customer base, and we know that our highest open rates happen on Sundays and Mondays, and we know our lowest happen on Fridays and Saturdays. So when we're trying to engage on behalf of our customers, we're trying to maximize those times in which we see the trends happening. So knowing what's happening in your prospect's industry is also key for timing. For example, is there legislation coming up that will create disruption, or has anything changed with your competitors, with their competitors that or yours that might create some type of urgency? For example, if a competitor is just got acquired, and so they may not be able to service their current customers they've had. Those are things that you may want to build a messaging campaign around. Creating compelling events can also be a way to disrupt usual timing patterns. So upcoming events such as conferences or special announcements or new versions of your technology webinars like this, which now we get to market to all you guys. Thanks a lot. Funding announcements, or even reaching out when your executives may be in town for other meetings and leveraging the fact that they're actually going to be in town could be all types of ways to drive immediate engagement. And lastly, don't forget keeping your response times as short as possible. Every single minute that goes by when you waste to reply to someone that has engaged with you significantly drops your conversion rates. So now we're going to get into attribution, and attribution is always thought about as who gets credit for what, but what's really important is using the information that you can receive by tracking attribution to actually work in your favor for future campaigns. So we've given you a lot of info, but now you need to be able to experiment, test, measure yourself, and decide what works for you and your customers. So in order to make data-driven decisions, you need to understand this attribution model. So starting from the result, figure out what different touch points over time and across different titles or personas, and in what sequence of events worked to close specific deals. Once we know what sequence of events led to your best customers, then we find the commonalities in the sequences, define that approach, double down on it, and of course we're off trying to crush the goals. And to recap, combining and perfectly orchestrating calls plus email touches plus programmatic and any of the other things you happen to be doing is key to your account-based sales and marketing success. You're going to want to leverage a more technical resource to manage the process. So don't put this on the shoulders of an SDR. And make sure the folks that you're giving the responsibility of managing all this has access to all your systems, so they have all the information in front of them to make the right types of decisions. So you should really have someone on staff that's heading up your sales and marketing operations if you're going to go down the account-based path. Your messaging also needs to be aligned so that sales and marketing are always saying the same exact things and portraying the same value on any channel. And lastly, it's really hard to build all this in-house. And it's also really hard to find great SDRs nowadays, and it's even harder to retain them past 12 months. So you're going to inevitably deal with turnover. Don't get caught building out an operating plan that's requiring a certain amount of opportunities to be created, and now you don't have the resources in-house to do that. So be open-minded to using a third party like an Outbound Works to drive qualified appointments powered by AI while leveraging a demand gen partner like a Metadata. And you won't get caught being behind the operating plan, and you'll be able to receive the best of breed approaches along the way as well. So I'm going to pass it back over to Gil to wrap things up.
Thank you, Ben. So guys, looks like we already have some questions. Nate, perhaps you want to take it over and start a Q&A session.
Sure, thanks, Gil. All right, so we got our first question in. How do you know which messaging, short messages, long messages, etc., are resonating with your audience and recipients? I believe this one's for Ben.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Great question, Peter. So it's about testing and measuring that. What I would do is I wouldn't test with your tier 1 account. So I would take all the accounts that you want to target, your named accounts, and I would create tiers for those. And that tiering may be based off of revenue or employee size or some type of way where you've got your tier 1 accounts or your gold accounts, which you'd love to have, and then you've got your tier 2 accounts and maybe your tier 3 accounts. I would do a lot of the testing in the tier 2 and 3, and what I would do is I would break out a subset of those accounts and personas from there, and then I would run different types of campaigns against similar personas in different groups. So I would run a campaign of maybe 100 messages to start that were more short form. I'd run another 100 at the same time that were longer form story style, for example, and I would send those out. I'd do some multivariate testing from there, and then you're going to start seeing some results come in. Then you want to double down a little bit further, and then once you feel really strongly that you know what your folks like, you can then start targeting your tier 1 accounts appropriately.
Just to add on that, unless this is gonna be the first time you ever run a campaign, probably within your HubSpot, within your Marketo, within your Mailchimp, whatever Outreach.io, you already have cadences, you already have emails that were open and clicked. You can already start by doing a little bit of a comparison between who opened what email. Like, if you see 10%, open rate, you want to take a look at exactly who opened it, what's their job title, what type of company, and you can start using those insights to essentially replicate and doing a little bit of an intelligent multivariate experimentation. So instead of trying everything and everything, anyone and everything, you're a little bit more narrowed down.
Great, thanks. Just a reminder for everyone who is in our audience, the way to ask questions is on the left of your screen. There's a chat box. You can just fill it in, and we'll get to the questions as they come in. So the next one, when experimenting with account-based marketing, is it more effective to focus on market segments that have been historically productive, or is it okay to use ABM to try and enter new market segments?
100% going after new markets is viable. So with metadata or in general, within your demand generation, you never want to really only do one type of campaign. So let's say, one of our clients, we did an analysis of their ideal customer profile, and we gave them the report, and they said, this looks great, and this indeed represents exactly who we're going after successfully today. The problem is that we exhausted that market. That particular client claimed that they already have 87% or 83%, I don't remember, of that particular segment. And so they want to go after new segments. So you definitely want to have a few things going on at the same time. If you already have a great success in a particular segment, you want to squeeze the value and see how many more of this particular industry or technology install base or what have you can close, keep closing as new opportunities. However, you don't want to only bet on one horse, so you would want to start understanding what other similar industries or similar technologies or similar segments in the market you can go after, and start running, generating a target, list of target accounts from those particular, from that particular segment, and list of people within that segment, and start going after them. You'd very, very likely use different messages or different collateral. So just make sure that as you run your campaigns, you appropriately use the right message and the right collateral to either existing segments. You probably use a lot of case studies and a lot of solution pages because you already have so much experience there, versus a net new green lead or green market where you would be maybe a little bit more thought leadership or new announcements or partnership with a third party vendor that complements your solution. So it might be a little bit different of a message there. Looks like there's another question.
Yeah.
Nate, do you want to go through the question?
I see that one. Yeah, I'll jump in. There's a question from Vishal that I'll answer. So Vishal asks, what's the best way to approach the prospect if we don't have any marketing campaigns? Just got a lead from someone/somewhere. How do we make it relevant and personalized? So that's a great question. I would say that, of course there's lots of tools as you're trying to do this at scale out there, or services like the ones we've talked about today. But if you're just talking about getting started and really want to engage with someone and make the message that you're sending back or the engagement relevant and personalized, I'd say some of the easiest low-hanging fruit ways to do this from a manual perspective. One, there are lots of browser plugin tools that are out there, for example, and so just engaging with a single person, you could quickly gather a lot of information about that individual right from your browser in the process of responding back to them. But going to LinkedIn is always a great place to start. See what role they're in, see what their likes are, see if they've had any posts or anything like that. Look at where they're from. That could also be interesting, and their employment history, and see if there's any mutual connections that you have there. So those are great places to start. Making something a little bit more relevant for them could also be talking about how you've made someone like them successful previously, and in a type of company and a type of role that they're in, and how you help them. The reality is most roles at most companies in similar sizes have very similar pain points, and so if they're interested in what you have to offer, they're coming over for a reason. And it's likely a pain that you've identified in your value prop that you might want to hone in on. I wouldn't be too forceful with it, but I would be open to speculating that, hey, we've helped companies like this with these types of problems. Is this the type of problem you're experiencing? Is there anything else we could help address? And that might be a good opening for you as well from a relevancy perspective.
Great, thanks, Ben. And sorry, I'll keep a better eye on my mute button next time.
No problem.
Another question here, where do you see the reason for ABM being such a prominent trend, and what are the technologies and core principles that make such a trend happening now and not earlier?
I can take that one. So there are three things that made and it's ABM has been around, just for everyone to know. ABM has been around for over a decade. It's been used, it's been around, and it's been practiced. It's now become a trend for multiple reasons. Well, first of all, we have, after about a decade of automation, of marketing automation, not having to manually run, send emails and manually collect some of the data, etc. Now we're trying to get a little bit more sophisticated, and it's clear that in B2B there is a lot of noise that marketing is generating, and one of the ways to decrease that noise or the signal-to-noise ratio, increasing signal-to-noise ratio is to do ABM, because ABM essentially narrows down the operations and the marketing to only those particular qualified accounts. So that's kind of the reason it's become popular. Now, in terms of technologies that are now available, it depends on what kind of piece of the ABM you're referring to. If you're referring to the ICP, to the practice of analyzing your historical data, enriching and analyzing your historical data and coming up with who is your ideal customer profile, so predictive models like open source machine learning libraries and Hadoop, the ability to store a vast amount of data, made that possible. Because until 5 years ago, if you were to try to run, or 7 years ago, if you were to try to run an ICP, you would have to pay a lot of money into a Netezza or some kind of an Oracle hardware to being able to even store the data to analyze it to begin with. And then if you want to analyze it, you'll have to hire a bunch of PhDs to run this for you, because there was no open source machine learning models available. So it used to be very complicated to run it. Now it's more of a commodity. The second piece that is now fully available is the fact that most of the applications that we're using today are executable and operational using a RESTful API. That's why at Metadata we said, okay, now we can store data for cheap. Now we can build models a lot faster because open source library allows us to do it. And now everything is operable using a RESTful API. So there is no more need for the marketing ops to spend all of their day, setting up UTM tags and enriching data and buying data and doing A/B testing and setting up campaign manually and doing retargeting manually, setting up code snippets all day. All those tasks have become obsolete because the computer can do them much faster and scale them up and do it more accurately. But as I mentioned, those are relatively new technologies that are now are available to everyone. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons we're seeing a surge in those technologies in B2B.
Great. Thanks, Gil. I think we have time for one more question here. So what is the integration channel to get the personal profiles from websites, and how can you match profiles to accounts?
Ben, do you want to take that, or should I?
Yeah, well, I think we could probably team up on that one. I'll start. I think that there's a lot of tools out there. I just had mentioned, a lot of browser plugins and things like that will actually take the accounts you're on based on the website that you're on, and you can certainly get the right type of contacts from there. There's also a lot of great data companies out there that do this automatically. So if you take a list of accounts, for example, you can send that to them and pick which personas or profiles that you want, and then they'll enrich them with that. So there's lots of tools to do that sort of thing. We also do that as part of our service as well, of course. But I'd be happy if you want to contact me directly, I can probably point you in the right direction for a vendor that will map appropriately for what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I would add to that, every data source has their unique core competencies. They are not apples to apples. So, if you're going after sales and marketing, you probably want to go to like an inside view kind of data source. If you're looking for contact information, you may be more interested in going to a Zoom info for the direct contact. If you're looking for all the possible signals on a person, you might go to PIPL.com. They sell data to Google and Microsoft, actually. If you're looking for, the LinkedIn groups and skill set and, social profiles, etc., what Ben mentioned is some of the Chrome or other browsers add-ons might fix that. If you're looking for technology install date or the technology install base on the front end, you're looking at DataNight. If you're looking for back-end technologies like either using Oracle or using Amazon or using Azure, then you're looking at AG Data. If you're looking for information about the structure of the company, you may be going to DiscoverOrg. So really there are dozens of data sources. If you're looking for the cookie data, you have Relevance. There are dozens of data sources out there. You have to really understand what is your use case. The best way to go, this is why in Metadata we aggregate data from all those different data sources, because for every, not every customer of ours is using the same set of data sources usually. It's different combinations, and we help companies understand what type of data sources are best matched with their use case. So for you, if you have a bunch of data tasks, if you will, that you have pending, the best way to go is to understand, maybe take a small sample of that data set and say, what am I trying to get? Am I trying to get their social profile? Am I trying to get their cookies? Am I trying to get their industry, the job title, whatever it is I'm trying to get? Take that small sample of data and run it by 3-4 different data sources and see which one of them is getting more and more match rates for you and getting more valuable data. And based on that, you may be able to infer what type of company you need to keep working on in order to supplement and get high data integrity for your systems.
Great. All right, well, I think we are at our 45-minute mark, a little bit over. So with that, there was one question that was about recording. Just to remind folks that the recording of this webinar is going to be emailed out to every registrant, so you should expect that probably sometime tomorrow. If you have additional questions, again, feel free to reach out to our speakers or continue the conversation on Twitter with our hashtag B2BADM. And that is the end of this webinar. So have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. All right.
You too.